Sebastian Rothschild came home at 3 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. He never came home at 3 in the afternoon. He was supposed to be in Singapore closing a $12 million deal for a Monet. But something, he couldn't explain what, had pulled him back to the Connecticut estate early. The house was silent. That wasn't unusual. The house was always silent. But then he heard voices. Children's voices. His daughters' voices. They were describing something. Talking about colors. About shapes. About light. His 4 blind daughters were describing what they could see. Sebastian's hand froze on the banister. His heart stopped beating. And in approximately 30 seconds, his entire understanding of reality was about to collapse. You need to understand something about Sebastian Rothschild before we go any further. The man lived in a world of visual perfection. His gallery on Madison Avenue housed works by Rembrandt, Vermeer, Caravaggio. Paintings worth more than most people would earn in 10 lifetimes. He could spot a forgery from across a room. He could authenticate a brushstroke with one glance. His eye for beauty had made him a fortune estimated at $400 million. And he had 4 daughters who would never see any of it. Aurora, Celeste, Luna, and Stella. 7 years old. Named after celestial objects they would never witness. The dawn, the sky, the moon, the stars. Born with Leber Congenital Amaurosis, a genetic condition that destroyed their retinas before they took their first breath. Complete bilateral blindness. No light perception. No shadows. No shapes. Nothing. 18 specialists across 4 countries had delivered the same verdict. Dr. Patricia Chen at Johns Hopkins had been the most direct. Mr. Rothschild, your daughter's optic nerves never developed properly. The photoreceptors in their retinas are absent. There is no treatment. No surgery. No hope of recovery. I'm sorry. That was 6 years ago. 6 years of Sebastian throwing money at the problem. Experimental gene therapy in Switzerland. Stem cell treatments in South Korea. A faith healer in Brazil who'd cost him $50,000 and delivered nothing but false hope and a blessed candle. Nothing worked. Nothing changed. His ex-wife, Victoria, had left when the girls were 18 months old. She'd looked at him across their bedroom, the bedroom with windows overlooking Long Island Sound, windows their daughters would never appreciate, and said, I can't do this. I didn't sign up for this. I'm sorry. She'd married a derivatives trader 6 months later. Sebastian heard they had 2 healthy sons now. He didn't blame her. Not really. Some people weren't built for tragedy. Maybe he wasn't either. He just couldn't leave. The girls were his. Defective or not, and God, he hated himself for even thinking that word, they were his. But he wasn't good at being present. He was good at acquiring, negotiating, conquering. Not at caring. Not at the daily grind of raising 4 blind children. So he hired people. A rotation of nannies, tutors, therapists. 23 different caregivers over 6 years. Some quit after a week. The longest lasted 9 months before she broke down crying and admitted she couldn't handle it anymore. Sebastian spent most of his time at the gallery or traveling for acquisitions. When he was home, he drank expensive Bordeaux alone in his study and tried not to think about the Picasso hanging in the hallway that his daughters would never see. The Blue Period original. One of only 7 in private hands. It was worth $30 million. It might as well have been worthless. The girls moved through the house like a single organism, holding hands everywhere they went. Aurora in front, then Celeste, then Luna, then Stella bringing up the rear. They whispered to each other constantly, a language that seemed half English, half something else, some twin dialect multiplied by 4. They'd created their own world, separate from his. He was the man who existed at the periphery, the deep voice that came home late and left early, the presence that brought disruption to their ordered universe. 3 months ago, he'd fired the last nanny. Mrs. Patterson, a 60-year-old British woman with impeccable credentials and zero warmth. She'd been efficient, professional, and utterly incapable of connecting with the girls. They'd retreated further into themselves under her care, barely speaking except to each other. Sebastian had been interviewing replacements for 2 weeks. 37 applications. 5 interviews. No one seemed right. Too young. Too inexperienced. Too uncomfortable with disability. Too comfortable, like they saw his daughters as a project, a challenge, a resume bullet point. And then Thomas Wright walked into his office. But before we continue, hit subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from. I believe this story found you today for a reason. Something about these 4 little girls and what's about to happen to them. I think it's going to speak to something in your life. So stay with me. Because what happens next, you need to hear. Thomas Wright was 71 years old. Black, thin, slightly stooped, with white hair cropped close to his skull and hands that showed a lifetime of manual labor. He'd been the night custodian at Sebastian's gallery for 3 years. Sebastian barely knew he existed. They'd spoken maybe 5 times. Brief exchanges. Good evening. Have a good night. That was the extent of their relationship. So when Thomas appeared in the doorway of Sebastian's study that Tuesday evening, Sebastian didn't recognize him at first. He looked up from his laptop, irritated at the interruption. "Can I help you?" "Mr. Rothschild." Thomas's voice was quiet, gravelly. "I heard you're looking for someone to help with your daughters." Sebastian sat back in his chair. He studied the man. Thomas wore clean but faded jeans, a white button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up, work boots. He carried nothing except a small worn Bible in one hand. "And you are?" "Thomas Wright. I work at your gallery. Night maintenance." "I see." Sebastian couldn't keep the skepticism from his voice. "And what makes you think you're qualified to care for 4 blind 7-year-olds? Thomas was quiet for a moment. Then he said something Sebastian didn't expect. "I was born blind, Mr. Rothschild. I didn't see my first sunrise until I was 60 years old." Sebastian's hand paused halfway to his wine glass. "Excuse me." "Genetic condition. Same as your daughter's, near as I can tell from what the staff talks about. My retinas were destroyed before birth. I lived in darkness for 60 years. Complete darkness. No light at all." Sebastian's heart was beating faster. He didn't know why. And then I got into an experimental trial at Yale. Stem cell therapy combined with gene replacement. It took 2 years of treatments. 2 years of exercises, therapy, supplements. But it worked. Thomas met Sebastian's eyes. His own eyes were clear, bright, fully functional. "I've had vision for 11 years now. And I know exactly what your daughters are going through." The study was silent except for the ticking of the antique clock on the mantel. Sebastian's mind was racing. This was impossible. Wasn't it? The doctors had said. "I don't need credentials," Thomas said quietly. "I don't need references. I don't need a salary, even. I'm 71. I have a pension. I have enough. He paused. His jaw worked. "I just know what it's like to live in that darkness. And if there's even a chance I could help them, I need to try." Sebastian should have said no. Should have called security. Should have run a background check. Should have done 100 things differently. But he looked at this old man standing in his study holding a Bible, and something in his chest loosened. Just slightly. "You have 1 week, Sebastian heard himself say. "Trial period. If my daughters aren't comfortable, You leave immediately. Understood? Yes, sir. And I want daily reports. Detailed reports. Everything they eat, everything they do, any changes in behavior. Of course. When can you start? Thomas smiled. It transformed his face completely. Now, if you'll have me. Thomas moved into the staff quarters that night. A small apartment over the garage, clean and simple. He unpacked one bag. 3 changes of clothes. The Bible. A worn notebook. A photograph of a young woman, his daughter, who died of leukemia 20 years ago, he'd tell Sebastian later. And a bottle of vitamins that looked like they'd been compounded at a specialty pharmacy. The next morning, Sebastian introduced Thomas to the girls at breakfast. They were sitting at the kitchen table, the 4 of them in a row. Aurora, Celeste, Luna, Stella. Identical faces. Dark hair, pale skin, eyes that didn't quite focus on anything. They wore matching white nightgowns, their hands linked even while sitting. Girls, Sebastian said. His voice sounded too loud in the quiet kitchen. This is Thomas. He's going to be helping take care of you for a while. No response. The girls' faces didn't change. They'd learned to be still around strangers. Thomas walked slowly toward the table. He didn't rush. He pulled out a chair and sat down, leaving 2 seats of distance between himself and Aurora. Good morning, he said. His voice was soft, warm. I'm pleased to meet you. Silence. Then Stella, the youngest by 4 minutes, tilted her head slightly. You sound old, she said. Thomas chuckled. That's because I am old. I'm 71 years old. That's pretty old. How old is old? Celeste asked. Well, when you're 7, 71 probably seems ancient. Like dinosaur old. A smile tugged at Luna's lips. Just barely. But Sebastian saw it. I can't see you, Aurora said. Her voice was matter-of-fact, not sad. Just stating a truth. I know, Thomas said. But I can see you. And you're all very beautiful. Everyone says that, Stella said. But they don't mean it. Thomas was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Serious. You're right. Most people don't mean it. They say it because they feel sorry for you. But I mean it. I see 4 strong young ladies who figured out how to live in a world that wasn't built for them. That takes courage. And courage is beautiful. Sebastian watched from the doorway. His daughters' faces had changed. They weren't smiling, but they weren't closed off anymore either. They were listening. Really listening. Can I have breakfast with you? Thomas asked. We have oatmeal, Luna said. I love oatmeal. It's boring oatmeal. Plain. Even better. Do you mind if I join you? Aurora, the natural leader, considered this. Then she said, okay. Thomas stood and moved to the kitchen counter. He found a bowl, filled it with oatmeal from the pot on the stove, and sat down at the table 1 seat away from Aurora. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Then Thomas said, Can I tell you something I learned when I was blind? You were blind. Aurora's head snapped toward him. For 60 years. All 4 girls turned toward his voice now. Their hands gripped each other tighter. But you can see now. Celeste's voice was whisper-soft. I can. How? This from Stella. It's a long story. But I'll tell you. Not today. Today we're just going to have breakfast and get to know each other. But I'll tell you. I promise. Sebastian stood in the doorway, his coffee growing cold in his hand. He didn't know what he was feeling. Hope, maybe. He'd forgotten what that felt like. He left for the gallery without saying goodbye. That's what he always did. For the first 3 days, Thomas didn't try to do anything special. He just existed with the girls. He learned their routine. Morning oatmeal at 7. Music lessons at 9. Reading time at 10. Audiobooks playing while the girls sat on the floor of the library. Lunch at noon. Rest time. Afternoon walk around the grounds, the girls holding hands in their chain, Thomas walking beside them describing what he saw. The maple trees are starting to turn, he'd say. The leaves at the top are yellow now. Like butter. Or sunshine. They'll be red in another week. The girls would listen. They'd tilt their faces toward the sound of his voice. On day 4, Thomas started the exercises. He did it so subtly that Sebastian, who was barely home anyway, didn't notice. It started with touch. Thomas would have the girls close their eyes, redundant, yes, but it helped them focus, and he'd press his thumbs very gently against their closed eyelids. Feel that, he'd say. Feel the warmth. That's energy. That's blood flow. We're going to teach your eyes to wake up. Then pressure points. He'd press certain spots around their eye sockets, on their temples, on the bridge of their noses. Acupressure points he'd learned during his own treatment. Then the supplements. The bottle from his room. Small capsules containing vitamin A, lutein, zeaxanthin, omega-3 fatty acids. Something called REDS2 formula that ophthalmologists gave to patients with macular degeneration. This is just food, he told them. Nutrition for your eyes. Your body needs the right fuel to heal. But the doctors said we can't heal, Aurora said. Doctors are smart, Thomas replied. But they don't know everything. And sometimes miracles look like medicine and hard work combined. Sometimes God helps those who help themselves. He didn't push. He didn't make promises. He just included the exercises in their routine like they were brushing their teeth or combing their hair. 10 minutes in the morning. 10 minutes before bed. The girls didn't question it. It became normal. And then there were the prayers. Every night, Thomas would sit with them after they'd changed into their nightgowns and climbed into their 4 identical beds in the massive shared bedroom. He'd pray with them. Not long prayers. Not showy prayers. Just simple conversations with God. Lord, thank you for these 4 beautiful girls. Thank you for their strength. Thank you for their courage. And if it's your will, help their eyes remember what they were made for. Help them see the world you created. But if not, help them see in other ways. Help them see love. Help them see truth. Help them see you. Amen. The girls would whisper Amen together. And then Thomas would tell them stories. Not from books. From his life. About living blind. About navigating a world built for the sighted. About the time he got lost in a department store when he was 8 years old because he'd let go of his mother's hand. About learning to read Braille. About his first job washing dishes in a restaurant kitchen, working by touch and sound and smell. I dropped a lot of plates, he'd say, and the girls would giggle. And slowly, so slowly that no single day showed change, the girls began to transform. They laughed more. They talked more. They asked Thomas questions about colors, about visual concepts they'd heard about but never understood. What does blue feel like? Celeste asked one day. Thomas thought about it. Close your eyes, he said. Now imagine you're swimming in a pool. You're underwater. Everything is cool and calm and quiet. That's blue. Peaceful. Vast. Like the sky and the ocean. Blue is breathing. What about red? Red is your heartbeat when you run. It's warm. It's alive. It's passion. Red is energy. The girls absorbed these descriptions like they were storing them somewhere deep inside. Sebastian noticed the change during his brief appearances at home. The house felt different. There was noise now. Laughter. Music. Not just the audiobooks, but the girls singing. Badly, off-key, but singing. He told himself it was good. It was what he wanted. He told himself he was grateful. He didn't examine why it also made him feel hollow inside. Replaceable. 6 weeks passed. Sebastian was in the study late one Thursday evening, reviewing acquisition proposals for a Rothco coming up at auction, when he heard it. Footsteps. Running footsteps. In this house, the girls never ran. Running was dangerous when you couldn't see. He stood up, his heart suddenly pounding. The footsteps were coming down the main staircase. Fast. Urgent. He stepped into the hallway just as Aurora appeared at the bottom of the stairs. Alone. Without her sisters. Without holding anyone's hand. She was moving quickly, confidently, her hand trailing along the banister but not gripping it desperately. She was navigating. On her own. Aurora. Sebastian's voice came out strangled. She stopped. Turned toward his voice. Daddy. Where are your sisters? In bed. I needed water. I came down myself. She said it like it was obvious. Like it was no big deal. But it was a very big deal. Aurora had never navigated the house alone. Ever. How? Sebastian's throat closed up. How did you know where to go? Aurora tilted her head, considering. Thomas has been teaching us. He says we need to learn independence. We've been practicing. We know the house now. We count steps. We remember turns. It's not hard. Not hard. She said it wasn't hard. Sebastian's vision blurred. He realized his hands were shaking. That's good, sweetheart. That's very good. The kitchen is 23 steps that way, then turn left, then 12 more steps to the sink. I know, Daddy. She walked past him. Confident. Independent. His 7-year-old blind daughter walked past him like she owned the space. Sebastian stood frozen in the hallway. His chest felt tight. This wasn't possible. 6 weeks ago, Aurora wouldn't let go of her sister's hands to use the bathroom. Now she was navigating the house alone in the dark. What was Thomas doing with his daughters? The next morning, Sebastian cancelled his meetings. He told his assistant he was working from home. Then he did something he hadn't done in years. He watched. He positioned himself in the upstairs hallway where he could see into the girls' room, and he watched Thomas's morning routine with them. 7 a.m. Thomas knocked softly on their door. Good morning, ladies. For sleepy voices, good morning, Thomas. Time to wake up those beautiful eyes. Sebastian watched as Thomas went to each bed. He'd sit on the edge, and he'd take the girl's face gently in his hands. Then he'd press his thumbs against her closed eyelids, very gently, making small circular motions. Feel that warmth, he'd say. That's blood flow. That's oxygen. We're feeding your eyes. We're reminding them what they're supposed to do. He'd do it for 60 seconds on each girl. Then he'd move to the pressure points. Temple, bridge of nose, below the eyes, above the eyebrows. Methodical. Gentle. The girls sat perfectly still, their faces peaceful. Then the supplements. 1 capsule each, taken with water. Food for your eyes, Thomas said. Same thing he said every morning. Then they'd get dressed. Thomas would guide them through choosing their own clothes, teaching them to feel the textures, to remember what they'd worn yesterday, to develop independence. Breakfast. Oatmeal. But Thomas had added things. Berries. Nuts. Brain food, he called it. Eye food. After breakfast, they'd go outside. Every morning, 30 minutes outside. Rain or shine. Thomas said natural light was important, even if they couldn't perceive it yet. Your eyes can feel the sun even if they can't see it, he'd tell them. They'd walk the grounds. Thomas described everything, but differently than other people did. He didn't just say tree. He'd say, oak tree. About 40 feet tall. The trunk is thick, if you wrapped your arms around it, you couldn't make your fingers touch. The bark is rough, like lizard skin. In the spring, it'll have tiny green leaves that'll grow bigger through summer. Right now, the leaves are orange and yellow and red, and some of them are falling. Can you hear them? That soft rustling sound when the wind blows. That's leaves falling. The girls would stop and listen. They'd tilt their faces toward the sound. And then, at 11 a.m., Thomas did something that made Sebastian's blood run cold. He had them practice seeing. They'd go to the sunroom, the brightest room in the house, south-facing, floor-to-ceiling windows. Thomas would have them sit in chairs facing the windows. And he'd say, "Close your eyes. Now open them." "They're already open," Stella would say. "I know. But close them anyway, then open them again. Your brain needs to remember the difference." They'd do it. Close eyes that saw nothing. Open eyes that saw nothing. "Now," Thomas would say, "I'm going to turn on this lamp. Tell me if you feel anything different." He'd turn on a high-intensity lamp. Point it toward their faces. Anything. Long silence. Then, on this particular morning, Celeste said something that made Sebastian's heart stop. "Warm," she whispered. "I feel warm." "Good," Thomas said. His voice was steady, but Sebastian could hear the emotion underneath. "That's good. That's your eyes feeling the light. Tomorrow we'll try again." Sebastian backed away from the doorway. His hands were shaking. His breath was coming too fast. This was insane. This was impossible. The doctors had said. But what if the doctors were wrong? What if Thomas actually knew something they didn't? What if Sebastian's daughters could actually? He couldn't finish the thought. Hoping was too dangerous. Hope had destroyed him before. He went to his study and drank scotch at 11 in the morning and tried not to think about the words Celeste had said. Warm. 2 more weeks passed. Sebastian watched obsessively now. He'd pretend to work from home, but really he was watching. Following at a distance. Observing. The changes accelerated. Day 49. All 4 girls navigated the house independently. No hand-holding. They'd separated. Become individuals instead of a single unit. Day 52. Luna reached for her water glass at dinner without prompting. Her hand went straight to it. Didn't fumble. Didn't search. Like she knew where it was. Day 55. Aurora turned toward Sebastian when he entered a room, even though he hadn't said anything yet. Like she'd sensed him somehow. Day 58. Celeste said the lamp felt yellow warm instead of just warm. She was starting to perceive differences in light. Day 60. Stella pointed. She pointed at a window and said, "That's where the bright is. That's where the bright is." Sebastian stood in the hallway with tears streaming down his face, his hand over his mouth to keep from making noise. His daughters were seeing light. The staff noticed too. Mrs. Chen, the housekeeper, pulled Sebastian aside one morning. "Mr. Rothschild, the girls, they're different. Better. I don't know what Thomas is doing, but..." "I know," Sebastian said. "I see it. Should we call the doctors? Have them examined?" "Not yet." Sebastian's voice was rough. "Not yet. I don't, if we tell the doctors and they stop it, or they take over, or I don't know. Let's wait." But he was running out of time to wait. Because on day 63, something happened that Sebastian couldn't ignore. It was a Saturday. Sebastian was home. Thomas had taken the afternoon off, his first time away from the girls in 9 weeks. Sebastian found himself in the unusual position of being alone with his daughters. They were in the living room, listening to an audiobook. Sebastian was reading emails on his tablet in the armchair by the window. And then Aurora stood up, walked across the room, walked directly to the bookshelf, and reached up. Her hand went straight to a specific book on the third shelf. She pulled it down, held it. "Daddy, what's this one?" Sebastian stared at her. How did you know there was a book there?" "I can see it." The room went absolutely silent. The audiobook kept playing, but Sebastian couldn't hear it anymore. Just ringing in his ears. "What did you say?" Aurora turned toward him. Her eyes, her beautiful, supposedly non-functional eyes, seemed to focus on his face. Not quite there, but closer than they'd ever been. "I can see it," she said again. "Not like you see it, probably. But I can see that there's something there. A shape. It's book-shaped. Am I right?" Sebastian's tablet slipped from his hands. He didn't notice. "Daddy." Aurora's voice was worried now. "Did I do something wrong?" "No." The word came out as a croak. Sebastian cleared his throat. Tried again. "No, baby. You did something right. Something very, very right." Celeste stood up. "I can see shapes too. Since yesterday. I didn't want to say anything because I thought maybe I was imagining it." "Luna, me too. I see shadows. Dark and light." "Stella, I see bright spots. Like stars, but closer." All four of them. All four of his daughters standing in the living room telling him they could see. Sebastian stood up. Walked toward them. His legs felt weak. He dropped to his knees in front of them so he was at their eye level. "Look at me," he whispered. "Can you see me?" Four pairs of eyes tried to focus on him. They didn't quite lock on, but they moved in his direction. "You're a big shape," Aurora said. "Daddy-sized." "You're wearing dark clothes," Celeste added. "I can see the difference between you and the wall behind you." "You have something on your face," Luna said, concentrating hard. "Something lighter than the rest of you." My shirt. My collar. Maybe." Sebastian couldn't breathe. This was impossible. This was medically impossible. Every doctor had said. "Thomas said it might happen," Stella said. "He said our eyes might remember. He said we just had to be patient and keep trying and believe. He's been teaching us exercises," Aurora explained. "Every day. Twice a day. And vitamins. And prayers. He prays with us every night. He asks God to help our eyes wake up." "And they are," Celeste said, wonder in her voice. "They're waking up." Sebastian pulled all four of them into his arms. He held them against his chest and he wept. Great, shaking sobs that he couldn't control. The girls patted his back, confused but accepting, used to adults having emotions they didn't understand. When he finally pulled back, his face was wet. He didn't care. "We need to call the doctors," he said. "We need to have you tested. This is a miracle. This is." "Can we wait until Thomas is back?" Aurora asked. "We want him there. He's the one who helped us." Sebastian nodded. He couldn't speak anymore. That night, when Thomas returned, Sebastian was waiting for him. Thomas walked in through the kitchen door and found Sebastian sitting at the counter, a glass of very expensive scotch in front of him, untouched. "Mr. Rothschild." Thomas's face showed concern. "Is everything all right?" Sebastian looked at him. This 71-year-old black man in his work clothes and his humble demeanor, who'd walked into Sebastian's life 9 weeks ago and quietly, methodically, performed the impossible. "They can see," Sebastian said. His voice broke on the last word. My daughters can see. Thomas went very still. What did you say? Shapes. Light. Shadows. Not perfect vision, but they can see. Something is happening in their eyes. Something that wasn't supposed to be possible. Thomas pulled out a chair. Sat down slowly. He put his face in his hands. Thank you, Jesus, he whispered. Thank you. They sat there in the kitchen, these two men, and they didn't say anything else for a long time. There was nothing else to say. The impossible had happened. And everything was about to change. Sebastian called Dr. Chen at Johns Hopkins the next morning. He tried to sound professional, but his hands were shaking as he held the phone. Patricia, I need to bring my daughters in. Something's happened. What kind of something? They're seeing. Long pause. Sebastian, I need you to understand that sometimes parents want so badly to see progress that they... I'm not imagining this. They're identifying objects. They're navigating without assistance. They're describing light sources. Something is happening in their eyes. Another pause. That's not possible. I know what you told me 6 years ago. I know what every other specialist told me. But I'm telling you right now, my daughters are seeing. And I need you to examine them and tell me what the hell is going on. They came in 3 days later. Sebastian, Thomas, and all 4 girls made the trip to Baltimore. The examination took 7 hours. Dr. Chen ran every test available. Visual acuity, light perception, contrast sensitivity, visual field tests, October scans of the retinas, electroretinophragology, functional MRI of the visual cortex. She ran some tests 3 times, certain her equipment was malfunctioning. It wasn't. At the end of the day, Dr. Chen sat down with Sebastian and Thomas in her office. Her face was pale. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. I don't understand what I'm seeing, she said. Her voice was shaking slightly. 6 years ago, your daughter's optic nerves were underdeveloped. The photoreceptors in their retinas were absent. Today I'm seeing active photoreceptors. I'm seeing nerve regeneration. I'm seeing visual cortex activity. Their eyes are functioning. How? Sebastian's voice was barely a whisper. I don't know. This doesn't happen. Nerves don't regenerate like this. Photoreceptors don't spontaneously appear. This violates everything we know about ophthalmology and neurology. But it's real. Thomas spoke for the first time. It's happening. Dr. Chen looked at him. What have you been doing with them? Thomas explained. The eye exercises. The pressure points. The supplements. The light exposure training. The prayers. Dr. Chen listened. Her expression was skeptical at first, then thoughtful, then baffled. None of that should work, she said. But clearly something is working. The scans don't lie. Their visual acuity is still poor, maybe 20/200 in the best eye, but 6 years ago it was nothing. It was 0. No light perception. Now they're seeing shapes, light, some color. They can navigate. They can identify objects within a few feet. What's the prognosis? Sebastian asked. I don't know. I've never seen anything like this. If the improvement continues at this rate, she shook her head. I need to consult with colleagues. I need to research similar cases, if any exist. This is going to require a complete re-evaluation of our understanding of these conditions. Sebastian felt something loosen in his chest. Something that had been clenched tight for 6 years. So it's real, he said. This is really happening. It's really happening. Dr. Chen looked at the girls, who were sitting in chairs along the wall, holding hands again, tired from the long day of testing. Mr. Rothschild, your daughters are experiencing spontaneous vision recovery from a condition that's supposed to be permanent and untreatable. I don't know how it's happening. But yes, it's real. On the drive home, the girls fell asleep in the back seat. Sebastian drove. Thomas sat in the passenger seat, looking out the window at the landscape blurring past. Thank you, Sebastian said quietly. I don't know how to thank you for what you've done. Thomas was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I didn't do it for thanks, Mr. Rothschild. I did it because I remember what it was like. The darkness. The isolation. The way people talk about you instead of to you. And I remember what it felt like when I started to see. When the world went from black to grey to colour. It was like being born. And I wanted to give that to them. You did. You gave them the world. No, sir. I gave them a chance. They did the rest. Those 4 little girls worked harder than most adults ever will. They did the exercises even when they were tired. They took the vitamins even when they tasted bad. They believed even when they had no reason to. They gave themselves the world. I just showed them the way. Sebastian had to pull over because his vision was blurring with tears. He parked on the shoulder of I-95 and put his head on the steering wheel and cried like he hadn't cried since the day the girls were born and the doctors had first told him something was wrong. Thomas put a hand on his shoulder. Didn't say anything. Just sat there with him while the cars rushed past and the girls slept in the back seat and the world continued spinning despite the miracle that had just been confirmed. After a few minutes, Sebastian wiped his face. Started the car again. They drove home in silence. You'd think this would be the happy ending. You'd think Sebastian would be grateful, would celebrate, would embrace this miracle with joy. But human beings are complicated. And sometimes, the things that heal us also break us. Over the next 2 weeks, Sebastian watched his daughters continue to improve. Their vision sharpened daily. They could see faces now, not details, but the general shape, the contrast of features. They could identify people from across a room. They could see colors. Red was their favorite. They'd point at red things and squeal with delight. They were thriving. And Sebastian was falling apart. He started drinking more. Not at the gallery anymore, but at home. In his study. Watching his daughters through the doorway, watching them laugh with Thomas, watching them learn to see the world with Thomas guiding them. Thomas, who'd succeeded where Sebastian had failed. Thomas, who'd done in 9 weeks what Sebastian couldn't do in 6 years and $400 million. Thomas, who his daughters ran to when they wanted to share something exciting. Thomas, I can see the piano. It's black and shiny. Thomas, look, I can see the birds in the tree. Thomas, what color is this? Is this blue? You said blue was like water. Never, Daddy. Always Thomas. Sebastian told himself he was being ridiculous. Told himself he should be grateful. But the feeling grew anyway, dark and ugly in his chest. Jealousy. Inadequacy. The sense that he'd been replaced in his own daughters' lives. He'd never been good at being their father. He knew that. But he'd thought he was at least necessary. The provider. The protector. The one who kept the roof over their heads and the specialists on call and the trust funds growing. But now he wasn't even that. Thomas had given them something Sebastian's money never could. Vision. Independence. Joy. What did they need Sebastian for anymore? It came to a head on a Tuesday evening. Sebastian had been in the city all day, avoiding home. He'd walked through his gallery looking at paintings he'd acquired over decades, and all he could think was that his daughters could see them now. They could actually see these priceless works of art that he'd spent his life collecting. He should have been ecstatic. Instead, he felt hollow. He drove home at dusk. Pulled into the circular driveway. Sat in his car for 10 minutes, not wanting to go inside. Finally, he forced himself out. Walked to the front door. Opened it. And heard singing. It was coming from the kitchen. Children's voices. His daughter's voices. Singing some kind of song he didn't recognize. And Thomas's deeper voice underneath, harmonizing. Sebastian walked toward the sound. His chest felt tight. He reached the kitchen doorway and stopped. The scene before him looked like something from a life he didn't have. Thomas was at the stove, cooking something that smelled like tomato sauce and garlic. The 4 girls were gathered around the kitchen island, chopping vegetables, carefully, slowly, but independently. They were singing that song, something about sunshine and morning light. They were smiling. They looked happy. They looked like a family. And Sebastian wasn't in the picture. Something inside him cracked. What the hell is going on here? His voice exploded across the kitchen like a gunshot. The singing stopped instantly. All 5 people turned toward him. The girls' faces went pale. Thomas's expression shifted to concern. "Mr. Rothschild," Thomas said carefully. "We're just making dinner." The girls wanted to help. Making dinner. Sebastian's voice was cold, sharp. "In my kitchen. With my daughters. Like you're their father." "Daddy," Aurora started. "Be quiet." Sebastian didn't look at her. His eyes were locked on Thomas. "I want to know what you think you're doing. You're the help. You're hired to care for them, not to. He didn't finish. Didn't know how to finish. Thomas set down the spoon he'd been holding. His face was calm, but his eyes were sad. "Mr. Rothschild, maybe we should talk privately." "No. We'll talk right here. Right now. In front of my daughters, since apparently they're more yours than mine anyway." "Daddy, stop." Celeste's voice was loud, shocked. But Sebastian couldn't stop. 6 years of grief and guilt and inadequacy were pouring out of him like poison. "You come into my house. You work your miracle. You make them see. And now what? Now you're their hero. Their savior. What am I supposed to be? The guy who writes the checks?" "Mr. Rothschild. Don't." Sebastian held up a hand. His hand was shaking. "Don't say anything. I don't want to hear it. I want you to pack your things and leave. Tonight." The kitchen went completely silent. Thomas's face didn't change. "Are you sure about that, sir?" "I'm sure. You're fired. Get out of my house." "Daddy, no." Aurora's voice broke. Luna started crying. Then Stella. Then Celeste. All 4 of his daughters stood there crying, and Sebastian forced himself not to look at them. "You heard me," he said to Thomas. "Get out." Thomas looked at the girls. His face was full of pain. Then he looked back at Sebastian. "As you wish, Mr. Rothschild." He walked out of the kitchen. Sebastian heard his footsteps on the stairs. Going to pack. Sebastian finally looked at his daughters. They were staring at him like he was a monster. Like he'd just killed something precious in front of them. "Girls, we hate you." Aurora's voice was flat, cold. "We hate you, Daddy." She turned and ran from the kitchen, her sisters following. Their footsteps thundered up the stairs. A door slammed. Sebastian stood alone in the kitchen. The tomato sauce bubbled on the stove. The half-chopped vegetables sat on the cutting board. He walked to the stove, turned it off, looked at the sauce Thomas had been making. And then he collapsed. His knees buckled. He went down hard on the kitchen floor. And he sobbed. Great, wrenching sobs that tore through his chest like claws. What had he done? What the hell had he just done? Thomas left that night. He didn't say goodbye to the girls. Sebastian heard them crying in their room, heard them calling for Thomas, but the old man just walked out the front door with his single bag and his Bible and disappeared into the night. The next morning, the girls wouldn't speak to Sebastian. They sat at breakfast in complete silence, not eating, their newly functional eyes, staring at nothing. Sebastian tried. Girls, I'm sorry. I was upset. I made a mistake. Nothing. Please talk to me. Aurora finally looked at him. Thomas made us see, she said. Her voice was dead. And you made him go away. Why would we talk to you? I was jealous. I was stupid. You're always stupid, Daddy. This from Stella, the sweet one, the gentle one. You're always gone. And when you're here, you're not really here. Thomas was here. Thomas saw us. And you made him leave. Sebastian had no response to that. Because it was true. Over the next 3 days, the girls stopped doing their exercises. Stopped taking their vitamins. Stopped going outside. They sat in their room and refused to come out except for meals, which they barely touched. And Sebastian watched their vision start to decline. It was subtle at first. Aurora bumped into a chair she should have seen. Celeste couldn't find her water glass. Luna asked what color something was that she'd identified correctly the day before. They were regressing. On day 4, Sebastian found Aurora sitting on the floor of the library, crying, her hands pressed against her eyes. Baby, what's wrong? It's getting dark again, she sobbed. I can't see as well. It's getting dark, Daddy. I don't want to go back to the dark. Sebastian's heart shattered. He pulled her into his arms. It's going to be okay. I'll fix it. I promise. How? I'll bring Thomas back. Aurora pulled away from him. He won't come. You were mean to him. You fired him. Why would he come back? I don't know. But I'll make him. I'll beg him if I have to. You don't know how to beg, Daddy. You only know how to buy things. The truth of it hit him like a physical blow. She was right. He'd never had to beg for anything. He'd always just bought what he wanted. But Thomas wasn't for sale. Thomas had worked for free. Had given his time and knowledge and love out of pure goodness. And Sebastian had thrown him out like trash. I'll learn, Sebastian said. His voice was rough. I'll learn how to beg. I'll learn how to be humble. I'll do whatever it takes. Aurora looked at him with her fading vision. Promise. I promise. Finding Thomas was harder than Sebastian expected. The old man had no cell phone. No email. No social media presence. He'd lived simply, invisibly, for 71 years. Sebastian went to the gallery. Asked the other staff. No one knew where Thomas lived. He kept to himself, the day manager said. Nice guy, but quiet. Private. I don't think anyone knew much about him. Sebastian checked HR files. Found an address. Drove to it. It was a small apartment in Bridgeport. 3rd floor of a converted house. Sebastian knocked. No answer. He knocked again. Waited. Nothing. A woman emerged from the apartment next door. Elderly, black, wearing a floral house dress. You looking for Thomas? Yes. I'm his employer. Was his employer. He's not here. Left few days ago. Didn't say where he was going. Sebastian's heart sank. Did he say anything? Anything at all? The woman studied him. He said he'd failed. Said he thought he could help some children but their father didn't want him there. Said sometimes you can't save people who don't want to be saved. The words hit Sebastian like punches. If he comes back, Sebastian said desperately, Please tell him Sebastian Rothschild needs to speak with him. It's urgent. About his daughters. Please." The woman nodded slowly. "I'll tell him. If he comes back." Sebastian spent the next 2 days searching. He called hospitals, thinking maybe Thomas had returned to Yale where he'd received his treatment. He called churches, figuring Thomas might have gone somewhere to pray. He hired a private investigator. Nothing. Thomas Wright had vanished. At home, the girls continued to decline. Day 7, they couldn't see faces anymore, just vague shapes. Day 9, colors started fading to gray. Day 11, Aurora walked into a wall she should have seen. They were going blind again. And it was Sebastian's fault. On day 12, Sebastian sat in his study at 2 in the morning, drunk, staring at his phone. He'd called every number he could think of. Exhausted every lead. Thomas was gone. His daughters were going blind again, and he couldn't stop it. He picked up a crystal paperweight from his desk, a gift from a Saudi prince after a successful sale. Worth about $30,000. He hurled it across the room. It shattered against the wall. "What do you want from me?" he screamed at the ceiling, at God, at whoever was listening. "What do I have to do? I'll do anything. Anything. Just help me save my daughters." His voice echoed in the empty study. No answer came. Sebastian put his head down on his desk and wept. The next morning, Sebastian woke up at his desk. His neck was stiff. His head pounded. His mouth tasted like ash. He heard voices downstairs. His daughters, talking quietly. He went downstairs. Found them in the living room, sitting together on the couch, holding hands again. Back to being one unit instead of 4 individuals. They looked up when he entered. Their eyes didn't quite focus on him anymore. "Girls," Sebastian said. His voice was hoarse. "I can't find Thomas. I've looked everywhere. I don't know where he is." Silence. Then Celeste said, "Maybe he doesn't want to be found." I know I hurt him. Sebastian's throat closed. "I know I failed you. All of you. I've been failing you your whole lives. I wasn't there. I was never there. I thought providing for you was enough, but it wasn't. You needed a father, and I gave you money instead." He walked to the couch, knelt in front of them. "I'm sorry," he said. His voice broke. "I'm so sorry. I've been a terrible father. I was jealous of Thomas because he could give you something I couldn't. Because he saw you in ways I never did. Because he loved you better than I could. And instead of learning from him, I pushed him away. I'm sorry." The girls were crying now. All 4 of them. "We just want to see again, Daddy," Luna whispered. "We don't want to go back to the dark." "I know, baby. I know." Aurora wiped her eyes. "Did you mean it? What you said about learning to beg?" "Yes." "Then pray with us." Sebastian blinked. "What?" "Thomas always prayed with us. Every night. He prayed for our eyes. He prayed for healing. Maybe if we pray, God will help us find him." Sebastian hadn't prayed in years. Maybe decades. He'd stopped believing in God around the time Victoria left. Around the time he'd realized no amount of money could fix his daughters. But he looked at his 4 little girls with their fading vision and their breaking hearts, and he said, Okay, let's pray." They held hands. The 4 girls and their father, sitting in a circle on the living room floor. Sebastian didn't know what to say. Didn't know how to talk to God. But he opened his mouth and words came out. "God, I don't know if you're listening. I don't know if I deserve for you to listen. I've been prideful. Arrogant. I thought I could solve everything with money. I thought I didn't need anyone. I pushed away the one person who could actually help my daughters. And now they're losing their vision again, and it's my fault. Please." His voice cracked. "Please help me find Thomas. Help me bring him back. Help me save my daughters. I can't do it alone. I need help. I'm begging you. Please." It wasn't eloquent. It wasn't theological. It was just a broken man asking for help. The girls whispered amen. Sebastian opened his eyes. Nothing had changed. The room looked the same. His daughters still couldn't see well. But something in his chest felt different. Lighter, maybe. Or just empty in a different way. "What now?" Stella asked. "I don't know, baby. But we'll figure it out. Together." That afternoon, Sebastian was in his study when Mrs. Chen knocked on the door. "Mr. Rothschild. There's someone here to see you." Sebastian looked up. "Who?" "He says his name is Thomas Wright." Sebastian was on his feet before he realized he'd moved. He actually ran, down the hallway to the foyer. Thomas stood just inside the front door. He looked tired. Older than he had 2 weeks ago. He held his small bag and his Bible. "Thomas." Sebastian's voice came out as a rasp. "You came back. Mrs. Rodriguez next door called me. Said you'd been looking for me. Said you seemed desperate." I am desperate. The girls, they're regressing. They're losing their vision again. And it's my fault. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was jealous and stupid and... "Mr. Rothschild." Thomas's voice was quiet but firm. "Stop." Sebastian stopped. Thomas set down his bag. "I didn't come back because you're sorry. I came back because those 4 little girls need help. But if I'm going to stay, things have to change. Anything. I'll do anything. You can't just hire me to fix your children and then disappear. You have to be present. You have to be their father. I can help them see with their eyes, but only you can help them see that they're loved." Sebastian nodded. Tears were streaming down his face. He didn't care. "I'll be here. I'll cancel all my travel. I'll work from home. I'll be present. I promise." "You have to mean it. Not just say it." "I mean it. I swear to God, I mean it." Thomas studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Where are the girls?" "Living room." They walked together. Sebastian's heart was pounding. The girls were still sitting on the couch, exactly where Sebastian had left them. They turned toward the sound of footsteps. "Girls," Sebastian said softly. "Someone's here to see you." Thomas walked into the room. Aurora's head snapped toward him. "Thomas." Her voice was small, disbelieving. "Hello, Aurora." "Thomas." All 4 girls screamed it at once. They scrambled off the couch, stumbling in their partial blindness, and ran toward him. Thomas caught them. All 4 of them crashed into him, and he wrapped his arms around them and held them while they sobbed into his chest. "You came back," Celeste was saying. "You came back, you came back, you came back." "I'm sorry, girls. I'm so sorry I left." "We're sorry too," Luna said through tears. "We should have stopped Daddy. We should have." "Sure. It's okay. I'm here now. I'm here." Sebastian watched from the doorway. His throat was so tight he couldn't breathe. Thomas looked up at him over the girls' heads. "We have work to do," he said. "Their vision has declined significantly. Whatever it takes. I'll do whatever it takes." "Good. Because you're going to help this time. No more watching from a distance. You're going to learn the exercises. You're going to be part of their healing." Sebastian nodded. Yes, absolutely." And so began what Sebastian would later call the hardest and most important 3 months of his life. Thomas moved back into the apartment over the garage. But this time, Sebastian was part of the daily routine. Every morning at 7 a.m., Sebastian was in the girls' room with Thomas. He learned the eye exercises, the gentle pressure on the eyelids, the acupressure points, the way to massage around the eye sockets to stimulate blood flow. His hands were clumsy at first. He'd spent 47 years using them to write checks and shake hands and hold wine glasses. Not to gently care for someone. But he learned. Thomas taught him about the supplements. Showed him the research behind each vitamin, each mineral. Explained why morning sunlight was important. Why the girls needed to practice focusing at different distances. Why rest was as important as effort. Sebastian learned all of it. He rearranged his entire life. Told his staff at the gallery that he'd be working remotely for the foreseeable future. Set up an office in the house so he could work while still being present. Declined an acquisition trip to Paris that would have been worth $8 million. His daughters were worth more. Slowly, painfully slowly, the girl's vision began to improve again. Day 3 back, Luna could see colors again. Faint, but there. Day 7. Celeste could identify faces from across the room. Day 14, Aurora could read large print text. Just a few words at a time, but reading. Day 20, Stella caught a ball. A soft, lightweight ball tossed gently from 5 feet away, but she saw it coming and reached out and caught it. They all cried. But it wasn't just the vision that was healing. It was the family. Sebastian started having breakfast with them every morning. Not just sitting at the table, but actually engaging. Asking questions. Listening to answers. Learning about their interests, their fears, their dreams. He discovered that Aurora wanted to be a teacher. That Celeste loved music. That Luna was fascinated by science. That Stella wanted to work with animals. He'd lived with these girls for 7 years and never known any of that. Thomas watched from the side, offering guidance but letting Sebastian lead more and more. Teaching him not just how to care for the girls' eyes, but how to be their father. Talk to them, Thomas would say. Not at them. To them. Listen when they speak. See them as people, not just as your children or as blind children, but as individuals with thoughts and feelings and needs. Sebastian tried. He failed sometimes. He was still learning. But he kept trying. One evening, 6 weeks after Thomas's return, Sebastian found himself in the kitchen with all 4 girls. They were making dinner together. Pasta, vegetables, garlic bread. The girls could see well enough now to help safely. They were laughing, talking, singing that song they loved. And Sebastian was singing with them. He didn't know when he'd learned the words. Didn't remember deciding to join in. But there he was, singing about sunshine and morning light, his voice rusty but sincere, while his daughters grinned at him. Thomas walked in. Stopped in the doorway. Watched. Sebastian caught his eye and smiled. Thomas smiled back. Nodded slightly. Like he was saying, "You're getting it. Finally, you're getting it." 3 months after Thomas's return, Dr. Chen called. "Sebastian, I need your daughters to come in for follow-up scans. I've been reviewing their case with colleagues around the world, and, well, I need to document their current status." They went to Baltimore. Same 7 hours of testing. Same battery of examinations. At the end of the day, Dr. Chen sat down with them in her office. She looked like she'd seen another ghost. "The improvement is extraordinary," she said. Her hands were shaking slightly as she held the reports. 3 months ago, we saw significant regression. Today, Aurora is testing at 20/40ths in her left eye. Celeste at 20/50ths. Luna at 20/60ths. Stella at 20/70ths. What does that mean? Sebastian asked. It means they have functional vision. Not perfect, but functional. Aurora could pass a driver's test in some states. They can all read normal-sized print. They can recognize faces across a room. They can see colors, depth, detail. They can see. Dr. Chen looked at Thomas. I don't know how you did this. I've submitted their case to 5 major medical journals. This is going to rewrite textbooks. Regeneration of optic nerve tissue in congenital blindness. It shouldn't be possible. But it is, Thomas said quietly. With God, all things are possible. Dr. Chen shook her head slowly. I'm a scientist. I deal in facts and data. But I can't deny what I'm seeing. This is, she paused. This is a miracle. I don't know what else to call it. 6 months after Thomas's return, Sebastian was sitting on the back patio watching his daughters play in the yard. They were running, chasing each other around the garden, laughing and shrieking. Their movements were still a little careful, a little uncertain, but they were running. Thomas came out with 2 cups of coffee, handed one to Sebastian, sat down in the chair beside him. They watched the girls in comfortable silence. Thank you, Sebastian said after a while. You've said that. I'll say it every day for the rest of my life, and it still won't be enough. Thomas sipped his coffee. You gave them their sight back too, you know. By being present. By choosing them over your work. Children need to be seen, not just physically but emotionally. You see them now. That matters. Sebastian watched Aurora teaching Stella how to identify different flowers by sight. Watched Celeste and Luna examining a butterfly that had landed on a bush. I used to think the worst thing in the world was that they couldn't see, Sebastian said. But I was wrong. The worst thing was that I couldn't see them. And now I see them. Finally, I see them. Aurora looked up from the flowers. Saw her father watching. Waved at him. Sebastian waved back. She ran toward him, her sisters following. They crashed into his lap, all 4 of them, a tangle of arms and legs and laughter. Daddy, come see. Aurora said. There's a butterfly and it's orange with black spots and Celeste says it's called a monarch. Show me, Sebastian said. They pulled him up from his chair. Thomas stayed seated, smiling, as Sebastian let himself be dragged across the lawn to look at a butterfly with his daughters who could finally, miraculously, see it. 1 year after Thomas's first arrival at the house, the girls started 2nd grade at a regular school. Not a special school for blind children. A regular school with regular kids. They still needed some accommodations, larger print materials, preferential seating at the front of classrooms. But they could see well enough to learn, to play, to be normal kids. The first day of school, Sebastian drove them. He'd never driven them to school before. Had always had staff do it. But this time, he drove. He walked them to their classroom. Kissed each one on the forehead. Have a good day, girls. Daddy. Stella looked up at him, her eyes, her beautiful, functional eyes, filled with concern. You're coming back to get us, right? Sebastian's throat tightened. How many times had he not come back? How many times had he sent someone else? I'll be right here when school ends, he said. I promise. Promise. She hugged him. Then ran into the classroom with her sisters. Sebastian stood in the hallway watching them settle at their desks, watching them look around the room with wonder, seeing everything for the first time. The alphabet above the whiteboard. The books on the shelves. The other children. His daughters could see. He drove home slowly, tears streaming down his face the entire way. That night, after dinner, the girls asked Sebastian to pray with them. They'd started doing this every night, all 5 of them, Sebastian and the 4 girls, holding hands before bed and thanking God for the day. Tonight, Aurora said the prayer. Thank you, God, for letting us see. Thank you for Thomas and his exercises and his love. Thank you for Daddy, who's here now and who loves us. Thank you for our eyes that work and our family that's together. Amen. Amen, they all echoed. Sebastian tucked them into bed one by one. Aurora, Celeste, Luna, Stella, kissed each forehead. As he reached the door, Aurora called out, Daddy. Yes, baby. Can we see your paintings tomorrow? The ones at your gallery. We want to see what you love. Sebastian's breath caught. All these years, all these priceless works of art, and his daughters had never seen them. Never been able to appreciate the beauty he'd spent his life collecting. Yes, he said. Yes, we'll go tomorrow. I'll show you everything. Even the Picasso. Especially the Picasso. In the hallway, he found Thomas. You heard? Sebastian asked. I heard. I'm taking them to the gallery tomorrow. Closing it for a private viewing. Just for them. Thomas smiled. That's good. That's very good. Sebastian looked at this man who'd saved his daughters. This humble janitor who'd quietly performed the impossible. What made you come to me? Sebastian asked. That first night, when you walked into my study. Why? Thomas was quiet for a moment. I told you I had a daughter. I told you she died. Yes. Leukemia. She was blind too. Same condition your girls have. She lived 19 years in darkness. And then she died without ever seeing the sky or my face or the world God made. I couldn't save her. But when I heard about your daughters, I thought, maybe I could save them instead. Maybe I could give them what I couldn't give her. Sebastian's eyes filled. What was her name? Hope. Thomas's voice broke slightly. Her name was Hope. They stood there in the hallway, 2 fathers bound by love and loss and grace. She'd be proud of you, Sebastian said. For what you did. For who you are. I hope so. I pray so. I know so. The next day, Sebastian closed the gallery. Hung a sign on the door. Private event. Family only. He brought his daughters to Madison Avenue. Led them through the doors of the building he'd owned for 20 years. The building they'd never properly visited. He walked them slowly through the galleries. Showed them every painting, every sculpture, every piece of his carefully curated collection. This is a Rembrandt, he said, stopping in front of a portrait of an old man. It's over 300 years old. Look at how he painted the light. See how it glows on the man's face. The girls stared. Their eyes tracked the brushstrokes, followed the light, absorbed the colors. It's beautiful, Celeste whispered. They moved to the next piece. A Monet. Water lilies in blues and greens and purples. The painter was going blind when he painted this, Sebastian explained. His vision was failing, but he kept painting. He painted what he remembered light looked like. Aurora reached toward the canvas, careful not to touch. I remember darkness, she said. I remember not seeing. This must be what he missed. The colors. They spent 3 hours in the gallery. Sebastian showed them everything. The Caravaggio with its dramatic shadows. The Vermeer with its quiet domestic scene. The abstract Rothko that was just blocks of color but somehow made you feel emotions you couldn't name. And finally, the Picasso. The Blue Period original. The sad musician with the haunted eyes. This is the most valuable piece I own, Sebastian said. $30 million. Why is everything blue? Luna asked. Because Picasso was sad when he painted it. His best friend had died. And blue is the color of sadness sometimes. I like it, Stella said. It's sad, but it's also beautiful. Yes, Sebastian agreed. That's exactly right. He looked at his daughters standing in front of this painting that had cost him a fortune, and he realized something. The painting wasn't valuable because of the price tag. It was valuable because now his daughters could see it. Because they could stand here and experience art and beauty and emotion. That's what made it priceless. Can we come back? Aurora asked. Anytime you want, Sebastian said. This is your gallery too. Everything in here, I built for you. I just didn't realize it until now. They hugged him. All four of them, surrounding him in the middle of his gallery with millions of dollars of art on the walls and the afternoon light streaming through the skylight. And Sebastian Rothschild, who'd spent 47 years collecting beauty but forgetting to notice it, finally understood what it meant to truly see. 1 year and 3 months after Thomas's arrival, Sebastian stood in his backyard watching his daughters play. They were 8 years old now. Their vision had stabilized at levels the doctors still couldn't explain. 20/30ths to 20/50ths, depending on the day, the lighting, the eye. They would never have perfect vision. They'd probably always need glasses. They'd always have to be careful, always have to work harder than other kids to see clearly. But they could see. Thomas walked up beside him. The old man moved a little slower now. 72 was catching up with him. But his eyes were still bright, still sharp. What are you thinking about? Thomas asked. Sebastian was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I'm thinking about the day they were born. The day the doctors told me they were blind. I thought my life was over. I thought their lives were over before they'd even begun. And now? Now I know I was wrong. Their lives weren't over. Mine was. The old me, the me that thought money solved everything and presents didn't matter, that version of me died that day. It just took me 6 years to realize it. And the new you? Sebastian smiled. The new me is still learning. Still failing sometimes. But trying. Always trying. They watched the girls in silence. Aurora was reading a book out loud to her sisters. Reading, with her own eyes, words on a page. Celeste was drawing, copying what she saw in the garden. Luna was examining leaves, categorizing them by shape and color. Stella was playing with the family dog they'd adopted last month, throwing a ball and laughing when the dog brought it back. For little girls who'd been born in darkness, now living in light. Do you think God planned this? Sebastian asked. The blindness, the healing, all of it. Thomas considered the question. I think God allows brokenness so he can show us how to heal. I think suffering exists so we can learn compassion. I think you needed to lose your sight, spiritually speaking, so you could learn to see what really mattered. My daughters. Your daughters. Your life. Your purpose. You built an empire, Sebastian. But empires don't matter. People do. Love does. Presence does. Sebastian nodded. He knew Thomas was right. Aurora looked up from her book. Saw them watching. Waved. Both men waved back. I'm going to sell the gallery, Sebastian said suddenly. Thomas looked at him in surprise. What? I'm going to sell it. Or maybe just step back. Let someone else run it. I want to start a foundation. For children with vision impairment. Research. Treatment. Exercises and therapy. Everything you taught my daughters, I want to make it available to other families. Families who can't afford specialist after specialist. Who don't have $400 million to throw at the problem. That's good, Thomas said quietly. That's very good. I want you to help me run it. Be the director. The heart of it. You understand this in ways I never will. Sebastian, I'm 72 years old. So you'll work until you're 80. Or 90. Or however long you can. And you'll train others. You'll teach them what you know. You'll make sure your knowledge doesn't die with you. Thomas was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Your daughter. Hope. That's what we should call it. Hope. The foundation. We'll call it the Hope Foundation. For children's vision. In memory of my Hope, who never got to see. And in honor of your girls, who do." Sebastian's eyes filled with tears. "Yes," he said. "Yes, that's perfect." They shook hands. Then, awkwardly at first but then firmly, they hugged. Two men from completely different worlds, bound together by four little girls and one impossible miracle. 2 years after Thomas's arrival, Sebastian got a call from Dr. Chen. "I'm publishing the paper," she said. "The complete case study of your daughters. It's going in the New England Journal of Medicine." "That's wonderful. Sebastian, do you understand what this means? Your daughter's case could revolutionize how we think about congenital blindness. There are researchers at UCLA, at Stanford, at Oxford, who are now studying the protocols Thomas used. The exercises, the supplements, the environmental factors. If this can be replicated, thousands of children could be helped. Millions, potentially, over time. If we can understand the mechanism, if we can develop standardized treatments, this could change everything." After the call ended, Sebastian sat in his study. The same study where Thomas had first appeared 2 years ago. The same study where Sebastian had drunk expensive wine and pitted himself and refused to see what was right in front of him. He looked at the photo on his desk. A new one. From last month. All 5 of them, Sebastian, Aurora, Celeste, Luna, and Stella, at the beach. The girls were wearing sunglasses, squinting in the bright light, smiling with pure joy. Behind them in the photo, slightly out of focus, was Thomas. The photographer had caught him by accident, standing in the background, watching the family with a small, satisfied smile. An angel, Sebastian had called him once. Thomas had laughed and said he was just an old janitor who knew what darkness felt like. But maybe both things were true. Maybe angels came as janitors sometimes. Maybe miracles looked like hard work and vitamins and gentle pressure on closed eyelids. Maybe grace came quietly, through the hands of a humble man who'd known suffering and chosen to transform it into healing. 3 years after Thomas's arrival, the Hope Foundation opened its first clinic in Bridgeport, Connecticut. They treated 52 children in the first year. 12 showed significant improvement. 3 regained functional vision. Not perfect results. Not guaranteed miracles. But hope. Real, tangible hope. Sebastian ran the foundation full-time now. He'd sold the gallery for $80 million, invested half in an endowment, and used the rest to fund research and treatment. Thomas trained therapists. Taught them the exercises, the protocols, the patience required. Told them about living in darkness and learning to see. And the 4 girls, now 10 years old, volunteered at the clinic every weekend. They'd sit with newly diagnosed children and their devastated parents. They'd say, "We were born blind. We couldn't see anything. And now we can see you." They gave hope by being hope. Living proof that impossible things could happen. 5 years after Thomas's arrival, Sebastian sat in a church he'd never been to before. He didn't go to church regularly, old habits died hard, but today was special. Today, the Hope Foundation was being recognized by the State Medical Board for their groundbreaking work. Governor's Award. Big ceremony. Press coverage. But before the ceremony, Thomas had asked Sebastian to come here. To this small Baptist church in Bridgeport where Thomas had worshipped for 40 years. "I want to show you something," Thomas had said. Now Sebastian sat in a pew near the back, watching Thomas at the front of the church. The old man, now 76, moving slower but still sharp, stood next to a stained glass window. "This window," Thomas said to Sebastian, his voice echoing in the empty sanctuary. "I used to sit here every Sunday for 60 years and people would tell me what it looked like. Blue and red and gold. Jesus with the children. Beautiful, they said. For 60 years, I heard about this window but couldn't see it." He paused. "Then I got my vision. And the first place I came was here. I sat in this pew and I looked up at this window and I cried for an hour straight. Because it was more beautiful than anyone had ever described. The light coming through the colored glass. The expression on Jesus's face. The joy of the children. It was," his voice broke. "It was everything." Sebastian looked at the window. It was beautiful. Simple but profound. Jesus surrounded by children of all colors, all sizes. His hands outstretched, welcoming. "When your daughters got their vision back," Thomas continued, "when they started to see, I thought about this window. I thought about how no description, no matter how detailed, can capture what it actually feels like to see. To witness beauty. To perceive light. You have to experience it yourself." He turned to Sebastian. "Your daughters get to experience it. Because you let me help them. Because you swallowed your pride and let an old janitor teach you how to be present. Because you chose them over your empire." Sebastian's eyes filled with tears. "You saved them, Thomas." "No." Thomas shook his head. "God saved them. I was just the janitor he used to clean the dirt from their eyes." They stood there in the quiet church, looking at the stained glass window with its message of welcome and love. "I need to tell you something," Thomas said quietly. "The doctors found cancer. Pancreatic. Stage 4. Sebastian's world stopped spinning. "What?" "3 months ago. They give me maybe 6 months. Maybe less." "No." Sebastian's voice was hoarse. "No, we'll fight it. I'll pay for treatment. Any treatment. Experimental." "Sebastian." Thomas put a hand on his shoulder. "I'm 76 years old. I've lived blind and I've lived seeing. I've lost my daughter and I've helped save yours. I've done my work here. I'm ready." "I'm not ready. The girls, they're not ready. We need you." "You don't need me anymore. You're the father they need. You're present. You're loving. You're there. And the foundation, you'll keep it running. You'll help other children. My legacy continues." Sebastian couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Thomas pulled him into a hug. "Thank you," the old man whispered. "Thank you for letting me help them. Thank you for giving me purpose in my final years. Thank you for letting me be part of your family." "Thank you," Sebastian choked out. "Thank you for saving us. All of us." They stood there in the empty church, holding each other, while light streamed through the stained glass window and painted them in colors of grace. Thomas lived for 8 more months. He worked at the foundation until he physically couldn't anymore. He trained his replacement, a young woman who'd been blind until age 25 and knew the journey firsthand. He spent his final weeks in the apartment over the garage. The girls visited every day after school. They'd sit with him, read to him, tell him about their day. They'd practice their eye exercises with him, even though he was the one who'd taught them. "Just to remember," Aurora would say. Sebastian was there every evening. He'd sit with Thomas after the girls left. They'd talk about the foundation. About the families they'd helped. About hope and healing and the strange ways God worked in the world. "Don't let the foundation become just about vision," Thomas said one night. His voice was weak now. "Let it be about seeing in every way. Seeing people's worth. Seeing beyond disability. Seeing with the eyes but also the heart." I promise, Sebastian said. 3 days before Thomas died, he called all 4 girls into his room. I need you to make me a promise, he said. Anything, they said together. Promise me you'll use your sight for good. Not just to see, but to help others see. To see people who are invisible. To see injustice and do something about it. To see beauty and create more of it. Promise me. We promise, they said. And promise me you'll take care of your daddy. He's a good man, but he still needs guidance sometimes. They giggled through their tears. We promise. Good. That's good. Now come here. They piled onto his bed, careful of his fragile body. He put his arms around them as best he could. I love you girls, he whispered. You're the miracle I got to witness. Thank you for letting me be part of your story. We love you too, Thomas, they whispered back. Thomas Wright died on a Tuesday morning in early spring. Peacefully, in his sleep, in the apartment above the garage where he'd lived for 3 years. The funeral was at the small Baptist church. Hundreds of people came. Families from the foundation. Staff from the gallery. Medical professionals who'd witnessed the miracle. The governor sent a representative. But the eulogy was given by 4 11-year-old girls. They stood at the front of the church, Aurora, Celeste, Luna, Stella, holding hands like they used to. They wore matching black dresses. Their eyes, their miraculous eyes, were red from crying. Aurora spoke first. Thomas taught us to see. Not just with our eyes, but with our hearts. Celeste, he taught us that miracles are real, but they take work. Luna, he taught us that love is patient. Love is kind. Love is showing up every day. Stella, he taught us that we're not our limitations. We're God's children, perfectly made, even when the world says we're broken. They spoke for 10 minutes. Every word carefully chosen. Every sentence a tribute. When they finished, they walked to Thomas's casket. They placed their hands on it, all 4 of them together. Thank you, they whispered. Thank you for teaching us to see. The church was silent except for the sound of people weeping. 6 months after Thomas died, the Hope Foundation opened its 5th clinic. They'd helped over 300 children, published research papers, trained 50 therapists in Thomas's protocols. The treatments didn't work for everyone. Some children showed no improvement. Some improved but then plateaued. Others, like the Rothschild girls, experienced dramatic recovery. But every family left with more than they came with. They left with hope, with knowledge, with community, with the understanding that they weren't alone. Sebastian ran the foundation the way Thomas had taught him, with humility, with patience, with love. And every evening, he came home to his daughters. He had dinner with them, helped with homework, listened to their stories about school and friends and dreams for the future. Aurora wanted to be a teacher for blind children. Celeste was learning piano, learning to see music on a page. Luna was obsessed with biology, particularly genetics. Stella volunteered at the animal shelter every weekend. They were becoming themselves. 4 individuals, no longer bound together by shared limitation but by shared love. One evening, almost a year after Thomas's death, the 5 of them sat on the back patio watching the sunset. The sky was painted in oranges and pinks and purples. Thomas would have loved this, Stella said quietly. He can see it, Celeste replied. From wherever he is. I bet heaven has even better sunsets. Do you think we'll see him again? Luna asked. When we die. I know we will, Aurora said. And we'll tell him thank you again. 1,000,000 times. We'll thank him forever. Sebastian looked at his daughters. His beautiful, seeing, thriving daughters. He knows, Sebastian said. He knew before he died. He saw what he'd given you. He gave us more than vision, Daddy, Aurora said. She looked at her father with those eyes that shouldn't work but did. He gave us you too. You were blind, maybe even more than we were. And he helped you see. Sebastian's throat tightened. You're right. I was blind. To what mattered. To who you were. To how to love you properly. He taught me to see. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the day end and the first stars appear. For little girls born in darkness, now counting stars. One father born in privilege, now rich in the things that actually mattered. And one humble janitor's legacy, living on in every person who learned to see, with their eyes and with their hearts.